Hello and welcome to Mastering Music with Matthew. Today we're going to be learning about how to make your vocals sound great in Reason. I'm going to show you 2 ways, and you can apply these ways to any DAW. I have a special guest joining me to talk about this. We have Kyle Walz. How are you doing today,
Hey,
Kyle?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Great. I want to share with everybody today 2 ways to make your vocals sound great. The first way we're going to make our vocals sound great, double tracking. So, first we're going to listen to this song with just one lead vocal, and then we'll listen to it with another, and then we'll see what happens if we use both.
It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
Okay?
Okay.
Now we had that vocal pan to one side, okay? That was on the left side. So now let's listen to this one here pan to the right side.
It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
So you can hear it sounded a little different,
Yeah.
okay? Now if I put them both on at the same time, we get this effect.
It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
So it kind of feels to me sonically like it wraps around the whole ear. You can really hear all of it really clearly. So let me go over here and show you how I'm doing this, okay? Okay. So lead vocal 1, lead vocal 2. I have them panned opposite, left and right. I have the volumes the same, okay? I have different effects on them. So I have on the one on the left, I have sort of a room, sort of ambiance, really, really, really mellow. And then on the right, I have more of a plate. It's a little bit more of an intense reverb. EQ. So on the left side, I have my high pass filter enabled, okay? And I have it set to 114. So what that's going to do is that's going to make this one the deep sounding vocal. And I have the low pass filter enabled, and I have it at 8. So that's going to be a little bit of a dampening effect on the highs. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. It's not
Yeah.
going to have the brightest of the bright, and it's going to have some bottom end to the sound. Now
And that
here,
goes with the room reverb.
right, exactly. Then here, on the right side, I have my high pass filter enabled, and I have it at 240. So I'm scooping out a lot of the deepest bass. Still got the low mid, but taking out all the deepest bass of my voice. And then I have my low pass filter enabled with it at 13. So that's going to give us all of the crystal clear, over 10K brightness. And so we've got our filters set opposite, not extreme, but opposite. So that way, one is a little deeper sounding without the clarity, and then one of them has less depth but way more clarity. And with the opposite effects that go along with it, the brighter reverb on the brighter channel, it really helps to both bring out the clarity and the effects. And it makes them just kind of blend together and just kind of feel like a wraparound. Literally,
Right.
the Beatles used this technique. They took 2 lead vocals and just tweaked them to sound different a little bit, even though they were the same. And it creates that really cool stereo effect. I'll play one more time here so everybody can hear what I'm talking about with all of it.
It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. It's time to say goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
You can
Yeah.
at least when you have the full stereo spectrum, you can really hear the vocal is not just in the left and the right, but it's kind of just surrounding. It's kind of having this fullness. It's sort of almost an illusion of fullness that isn't really that full, just because of the subtle little micro differences in pitch and rhythm. So just to recap real quickly, we were talking about the 2 vocals, right, panned left and right, and then the
Yeah.
one has different reverb to complement more of a deeper tone, and then the other one has the brighter reverb to complement the brighter tone. And when you put it together, it really feels like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, because they're each able to kind of blend and sort of be distinct at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the main idea that as I'm hearing it is this idea that one has a slightly darker flavor and one has a slightly brighter flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way that those come together on a stereo spectrum does create this kind of, and you mentioned illusion, it creates this kind of dimensional illusion, where the voice kind of expands in a different way. You got your darker, kind of heavier part, then you got the brighter part, and that creates a cool shimmer, in a sense. And whenever I guess producers mention shimmer, we're talking about like high-end EQ and maybe some reverb or some saturation, where people might expect a chilling, some sort of sound effect when they hear shimmer. So we're talking about like, adjusting knobs and things to create this, sense of brightness and depth.
But all at the same time, not over affected either.
Right.
Real basic. Like I said, I used a darker room and a brighter plate, a room and a plate. So that's one way. All right. What is the other way then, Matthew? Okay, well, let's say you are not fortunate enough to get two really knock out of the park takes, right? Let's say you're only fortunate enough to get one really good lead vocal take. Now, that is not ideal. However, you can work with it, and this is how. The second way, which is not quite as cool, but is cool, is called head and shoulders method. Here's my lead vocal track. You can see there's just one. Just one lead vocal track is not going to give me a surrounding kind of effect. So what I had to do was go here to the Reason rack and create a Spider audio merger and splitter. And so what this does is allows me to send the audio from my lead vocals to a splitter. Then I return one chord to the original track so it comes back. But now I have 3 additional holes, so I send it to one that I label left, and then I send it to another one that I label right. Are you following me so far?
Oh,
so
yeah.
now I have 3 copies of my original lead vocal. Let's see what that original lead vocal sounds like by itself.
Sometimes I feel like I wanna go to the beaches of Mexico and chillax.
It's not very loud, it's not very powerful, it's not very anything. So if I take and I go here to my mixer, and you can see I take the same principle that I talked about in part 1, I have different effects on all 3. So here I have a plate on my main lead vocal, then I have the room on my left, and then on my right, I have an echo effect. Okay? So I have 3 different effects. And notice here that I have number 2 and number 3, I have them turned down. Okay? Yeah. They're not as loud as this one, because I don't want this to be effect heavy. Then, on my filters, I did the same thing I did on the other one. My main lead vocal is sort of moderately filtered. So I have my high pass filter on at 187. That's the default. So that just takes out the real deep bass that I don't really want anyway. Then I have my low pass on, and I have it at 11. So you can hear the full spectrum basically of my voice minus any woofiness or roomy noise that I didn't want. So on my left, I have it high pass on, and I have it lower. You see I have it set at 123. So it's going to capture more of the woofy bass, but not too much. And then I have my highs down to 7. So it's just going to capture and that nothing higher than that. Okay? Then here on my right, I have my high pass filter way higher, 427. So it's going to scoop out a lot of the bottom and make it more ghostly sounding. And then I have my low pass with massive highs set to 12.22. So listening to just what it sounds like with the lead vocal and one shoulder and lead vocal and the other shoulder, because if I turn the lead vocal off, I won't have any shoulder, if that makes any sense, because it's a shared sound. Here we have it with one shoulder.
Sometimes I feel
That's the
like
low
I
one.
wanna go to the beaches of Mexico and chillax.
Okay, now here's with the high shoulder only.
Sometimes I feel like I wanna go to the beaches of Mexico and chillax.
Really crisp. So now if I put it all together, we get the more full spectrum sound. Wrap around.
Sometimes I feel like I wanna go to the beaches of Mexico and chillax.
Okay.
But I have work and bills to pay. It's too hard to get away today.
I have my lead vocal set at 4 minus 4.23. And then I have my background shoulders at minus 551. And so they're just a little bit lower. And that's important because think of like the head is higher, right? So it's louder. And then the
Yeah.
shoulders are meant to be a little lower, but they give you the spread across the spectrum, both in the EQ spectrum and also in the left to right panning spectrum. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that idea. In a different video, you mentioned that particular technique. I like how you're taking one vocal take, and it seems like a lot of people that are new to recording or whatever, when they hear you say, "Oh, take a second vocal take that is comparable to the first," they're like, "Oh, I can't do that," and then they
It's
shut
hard.
down and don't want to even try. And so this idea of using one vocal take and then how to expand it, create a kind of stereo impression, not just have like, here's a voice, it's going to be, here, one side or the other in your headphones, here you're manipulating that image on purpose to create an impact for the listener. I like the dynamic change when the bright echo was on, and I forget which words you said, but you could hear that really crisp echo, and that really did a lot to make the vocals stand out in the mix too, because a lot of people forget that with different tones, it's the higher pitch part of the tone, or the part that sits higher in the EQ, that really gives the definition of something, and hearing that crisp echo, that made a huge difference when you turn that on. That was really cool to see and hear.
Yeah, and I'm just using default stuff from Reason.
Yeah.
Like I know it's sad. You're like, why aren't you spending 5 hours scrolling through reverb lists? Because I don't have to. The ones
Yeah.
that come loaded in the rack already sound great to me. Like, you know what I mean? So just and the one reverb that just kind of gives that long spread. It's just nice.
Yeah.
Especially for this song, because it needed something, just to kind of fill in the little teeny weeny little cracks, but not something obvious. I don't like my vocals to sound over affected, but yet, I don't want them to sound flat either. And I don't mean
Right.
flat like low in pitch. I mean flat like just they're just there and they don't have any like life to them.
Right. I like that idea of the head and shoulders. And now I'm thinking about, I could parallel my vocal channel, still keep the sidechain reverb, but then do from part one, that idea of splitting the vocals, painting it, and then giving one a different quality, one brighter, a little bit darker. That would be
Right.
that'd be cool
That's
to
the
try
rules.
too.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter which side is which, right? But basically that's what you want. You want different effects and you want one bright and one dark. And it's
Yeah.
that simple. And you can play with it. Like you can make it very mellow difference in bright and darkness, or you could make it more extreme difference in bright and darkness. I would say do each song different for the song, right? And so,
Yeah.
right, because sometimes you might want like a really dampening effect on a lead vocal. You can always too, if you want to have the shoulders come in and out, you can copy your audio and put it on a different track instead of running the wired way I showed you. But if you do that, you're going to tax your system way more.
Right.
But one thing that what I would suggest is make a fourth or fifth lead vocal track. Copy your lead vocal, and then maybe for an effect, like put it in an extra fourth way with maybe a special effect, or maybe extra extreme EQ, or maybe automate one of your other shoulders off and have it sound different in a moment to bring out a line. There's all different ways you can do it to
Yeah.
customize the idea. But basically, you just want differing effects and differing EQs on your shoulders, and then on your head you want it to sound like the main way, because it's going to be the loudest, most prominent. So you want your favorite reverb for that song on your head, right?
Yeah.
And then more like the accentuating reverbs on the shoulders. But it's just so many cool ways to do it. So I would say the best way, in my opinion, is with the double tracking, because if you can do that, then you really get the true stereo awesomeness sound that was created by those like the Beatles and so on. But then the Head and Shoulders way, it's good for, if you're trying to do it quickly, trying to do it with less effort, or with a singer that is less accurate singing with himself, or maybe less experienced singing with himself.
That's cool. It's a really good way to look at vocals.
Make sure you take a second and share this out, like this video, and subscribe to Kyle Walz and Matthew's Music Lesson Studio. Everybody, I'll see you next time on Mastering Music with Matthew.